Welcome back to the Artefactors Union. I am your host and foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, and today we are assembling the All the Worlds a Stage title box, containing models for the Neverborn and Arcanist faction, Pandora Tyrant-Torn, Dorian Crowe, and Colette, Smuggler. That's our artwork. Our renders are here. I am relatively certain the majority of our difficulty is going to be in Pandora, and that's who we're going to start with. Dorian's going to have a few more bits, but I'm pretty sure Colette's the easiest. We'll see. Let's look at the sprues. Here we go, and when I said Dorian's going to have a bit more bits, I kind of meant more than Colette, and I was wrong, actually. They're both 6, so they're going to be super easy, and then here's Pandora. Okay, let's get started on Pandora, and then we can have an easy time with the other two models, okay? Alright, here's our sprue, and assembly order is going to matter on this one. But I also want to point out that we don't have 2 of these bits labeled. It goes up to C11, however, there's no C5 that I can see. And I'm not sure if C6 is this bit or this bit. So I'll just make sure I emphasize what I'm using when we get to that point. But as far as order, we're going to grab the body like we almost always do, slam the legs on there first before we cover up that gap with this piece. Then we do the sash or shawl or whatever thing that goes across her arms on her back before we do the arms. Then we do the arms. We'll finish up with her hair, and then we are going to do separately this piece plus the box and the hand, and then we will figure out how those 2 bits connect to each other using this last bit. Alright, so grab the body, and then we'll do C2 and C4. Oh, here's our body. C2 is going to go in there, and well, it's a foot, so I'm pretty sure you know the orientation. There we go. Bit of poking to get it to really sit back in there as far as possible. So next is going to be C4, and that's just going to be right in here. There it is. Just put pressure at the very top of the thigh to get it to sit in correctly. So now let's do the front of the dress that sort of morphs into this magical effect. Grab C3. It's going to be this guy. And then after that, we'll go ahead and do this piece, which will go on the back. I'll just call this one C5. Why not? This side is what's going to connect to her dress, if that wasn't obvious. There we go. Pretty easy to assemble. Now let's go to her back, and the bit I decided to call C5 is going to sit right in here. There's a very obvious tooth on it where it connects. There it is. It's going to be very much shifted to her right side as opposed to her left. So that also gives you an idea of the orientation. Okay, now let's go ahead and do her arms. Long sprue, Doug. Her right arm, which we'll do first, be C6, and then our left arm C7. And once both of those are done, we'll do C9, her hair. Alright, C6, her right arm. I would put it in the socket, the shoulder socket first, and then once it's got a little bit of cure on it, it can stick. Just adjust the angle of the arm until it lines up with the shawl thing right here. But yep, those are our 2 connection points, shoulder and right here. Okay, now let's do C7, the right arm. Arm, sorry. This one's also a little fiddly. Same solution as before. Get it in the shoulder for a little bit so it sticks, and then adjust it so that it's aligned with the cloth here. Whoops. Let's go ahead and look at it from the back real quick. And it's optional if you want to throw it on the table or not. Okay, now let's get to her hair now. C9. Alright, there's our hair. It's doing its own thing. There's also a connection point on her shoulder, not just the top of her head. Yeah, almost like the sculptor was inspired by Jessie from Pokemon or something. But let's move on to her additional effects. We're gonna grab C8, then we'll add C11, the box, and C1, the hand. Actually, let's just combine C11 and C1 first. C1's fingers are going to be moving on our right, so the wrist would be over on this side. And that's what they look like combined. I'll go ahead and add them to C9 with the magical goo stuff coming out of the box right here, and then the wrist should be attaching around here. Okay, that looks, yeah, that looks good. Bit of a squeeze, but obviously that's what you do when you're, what you get when you sort of combine two halves of a bit. But I just now noticed that this is not a connection point, but is in fact just part of the arm that's coming out of the magical effect. So, yeah, now let's go ahead and we'll actually add C9 first to Pandora, which I believe connects these two bits. Okay, before we attach C10, we're actually going to attach our combined model bit here, because it turns out it attaches to C10, and it's nearly impossible to see where that connection point is. But it's right here, and it's actually a little bit easier to see because the other bit actually has a little part of it that touches the ground, so that'll kind of fit in here. But the connection point, the actual connection point, is going to be this little sort of almost triangle right here. So yep, I'll attach that and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, that's what it looks like connected, and that's what it looks like on the bottom. It's a lot easier to see. So here's it on the other side. Now we add that to Pandora. I showed you the connection points here as well as on her model. So let's put that together. Change of plans. That was just not a very good connection point, so we added this bit. We know where the other one is supposed to go, so we're going to put her on a base, and then we're going to glue that piece to the base too, also connecting it to this model at the same time. And that should give it a solid enough connection that we can call her good. Alright, so let's put her on a base. Okay, there she is, somehow kind of fitting on a 30mm. Anyway, let's get that bit in there now. Okay, yep. So one of the few times I suggest you just use super glue to attach it to the rest of the model. Also make sure that it's sitting up. I had to kind of break it a little bit because it was leaning a bit too far over to the side. So I'm going to re-glue this after I'm done recording this clip. But yep, let's call her good. Pandora Tyrant-Torn is done. This was not an easy build. Plenty of hard parts. Aligning the arms along with the sash or whatever that's covering her arms was kind of hard. Obviously, the magic part at the end and getting there to fit where it's supposed to go was pretty hard. Order of assembly, if you didn't do it in the order I did, you could definitely run into some headaches there. Plenty of stuff to have trouble with, so I wish you the best of luck. I think this video will be really helpful for you. It was certainly an interesting way to figure out how to get all that together, but it's together and it looks good, so I'm going to say it's not the worst. I love saying that. Alright, let's move on to our lovely gentleman, Dorian. Here is Dorian's sprue. A little bit easier than Pandora. I'm going to grab the body, B1, and then B6, the right arm. Then B3, the sort of back of the cape, plus B2 after we add B3, which will be the bottom of the cape, B4, the left arm, and finally B5, the right hand and cane. Alright, let's grab B1 and a B6. Alright, here's Dorian's body, and a B6 is going to go ahead and attach to his shoulder, as well as you see that tag on the knee, or tab, sorry, which is going to go right in there. Alright? And nice and snug on the front, and you can see that lovely seam back in there to indicate that it is on correctly. Next is B3, which is going to effectively cover up his back and his left shoulder. There it is. Almost too easy. Anyways, let's do B2, which is going to be the bottom of his coat cape thing here. And that also went in really easy. I am liking this model. Whoops! Alright, let's do B4, our left arm. I'm going to realize that he's tucking his arm and almost up to his chest, so I guess that's a reminder for you. But let's finish off with B5, the hand and cane, the right hand and cane. This is free hanging, but you can make sure that's flat against the ground because his shoe should also be flat against the ground. And since it's really, really close to his arm, I'm not too worried about it getting snagged and ripped off. Alright, let's base him. Dorian Crowe is all done. Hardest part was the cane, I guess? Really easy. Like, nothing gave me any sort of difficulty. So yeah, we'll say the cane, because I gotta say something, right? Okay. Alright, that's him. He's done. Let's move on to Colette. Here we are at our last model, Colette DuBois. Gonna grab her body and then do the front of the skirt, followed by her entire bottom, which is an E3, left arm, right arm, and then the feather that goes in her hat. Okay, so start with E1, E4, and E3. Okie dokie, E1, E3, the front of the skirt. Oops, don't hit the camera. And now, as a reference for how the bottom of the skirt E4 is supposed to go on, that notch right there corresponds to the notch here. Yeah, we're done with half of it already. Let's do E5 with the left arm, E6 the right arm, and then E2 the flower, no, the feather. Okay. Your left arm is the one holding the purse, and the purse will go into this hole. There we go, and E6, our right arm holding up the magic. There we go. Now last bit, E2, which is going to just poke into the back of her head. A hat, whatever. Right there. Went in easy. There we go, all done. Get her on a base. Colette DuBois Smuggler is done. Pretty easy. Hardest part, I guess the right shoulder, just because it's a pretty small connection point and the arm is not connected to anything else. And the feather in the hat, just because it's small, but really easy otherwise. Alright, let's look at the whole box. All the Worlds of Stage box is done. We have Pandora, Tyrant-Torn, Dorian Crowe, and Colette DuBois Smuggler. Hardest part was pretty much the magic effect on Pandora. Both the other two models were pretty easy. Pandora lion's share of the difficulty, but yeah, attaching her to the base and then doing the magic after that works best in my book. But yeah, that's it. Pandora, really the only hard part. So I've been your foreman, Douglas Scoundrels, helping you build a better Malifaux. Have a good night.